So with regards to these mini kegs, there's a few different tapping options you've got. The threads that are on the top here are compatible with a lot of the other mini kegs that are out there. So you can buy various different types of tapping heads, but the one which we recommend and I think is the most versatile is the one that has ball lock posts on it like this. Now we make our ball lock post mini tapping head, I would say, better than any other ones on the market. Firstly, our posts are machined to 20 micron accuracy. It's a pacified component. And then the other thing is we have a Cornelius compatible pressure release valve. So we're trying to standardize all our pressure release valves at the moment. So basically they're the same thread which you have on the Cornelius type kegs and on a lot of other components. So eventually what we'll have is color coded pressure release valve. This particular one's a red color for 2.5 bar. And there'll be a few different colors for different pressure ratings as well. But so that's a standard pressure release valve. One nice thing about this design of pressure release valve, if you need to release the pressure from the vessel, you don't have to sit there holding the pressure release valve. And that's one reason why they're so popular on the corny kegs. You just lift it up, twist it about 90 degrees, and then the pressure will come out. So really they're a better pressure release valve as well, and it's kind of nice to have all your pressure release valves standardized, so that way all the spare parts and stuff like that are also standardized as well. When you get the tapping head, it comes with a silicone dip tube like this, which is flexible. The reason why it comes with a flexible silicone dip tube is firstly so it's easier to cut the size, so they'll come a little bit long like that, and you'll have to chop them down to the right size depending on which mini keg you've got. Obviously there's different heights of mini kegs that we sell. But the other thing is the silicone actually is a compound which generally will sink in almost all beverages. So if you get beer, for instance, you'll put the silicone dip tube in here and it will go to the bottom, and if you're dispensing upright, that's fine. But also, if you're someone who's putting this keg sideways and want to dispense from the inside of your fridge, you want the dip tube to sink to the bottom, and that's also important. So I know a lot of people buying these mini kegs, one of the main reasons they're getting them is because they want to use their conventional domestic fridge at home and put the keg sideways. So that's one of the things that makes that possible. So when you've got these little mini kegs like this, the tapping head just screws on the top of the keg like so. And there's a few different tapping options, I guess. The cheapest option is just getting a plastic disconnect and putting a little Bronco tap on. That's okay, I suppose. It'll definitely do the job. These plastic heads are not really good if you're going to go to elevated pressures, I'll say. So that can be a bit of an issue. So a lot of people probably end up using one of our flow control taps. These are pretty popular for this application. Obviously, when you've got a mini keg with a dip tube which is fairly short in here, you don't have any flow resistance, and you need some way of introducing some flow resistance to the system if you want to dispense the keg over a long period of time. Otherwise, if you don't have any flow resistance, it means you have to use very, very low dispense pressures, and therefore the product will go flat over time. So it's something also to remember. So I've got one of the gold-plated Intertap flow control taps here. So you can just attach that to the top, set the flow resistance on the side here, and pull the tap. In the future, I've actually got some flow control ball lock disconnects we're also making. I think they'll be an even better option when they come out, but they'll be coming out later on in the year. So that's pretty much it. Definitely, most people getting one of these mini kegs probably most likely will buy one of these tapping systems. There are a few tapping systems out there, for instance, ones where the tap's mounted directly to the top of the unit, and they're a bit cheaper, but to be honest with you, they're just not as versatile. So we really reckon that this ball lock post attachment, it's standardized in the home brewing industry, and it's also probably one of the best options. Alright, the other thing I wanted to show you is how the mini keg system can really complement a conventional large size keg system. So most people are using these 5 gallon or 18, 19 litre kegs, and they would have them sitting in the fridge, but sometimes you want to have some beer that you want to be able to take away to a barbecue or a party, and you don't want to lug this massive keg around. So a setup which a lot of guys using mini kegs is where they use the large kegs in the fridge and they kind of daisy chain the kegs together. So I'm just going to show you how that works. You have your CO2 gas cylinder sitting over here. You're pushing the gas into your large keg just like you normally would. So you clip that on there, and then you daisy chain the large keg and the small keg together. So what you need to do that is a bit of a funny daisy chain disconnect setup, where you've got a black and a grey connected with a bit of tubing there. So this is pretty unusual. You'd very rarely see this type of setup where you put a black and a grey on the one piece of tube, but for this application it's perfect. So I'm going with the liquid disconnect on the large 5 gallon or 19 litre keg. So it's drawing up from the dip tube, it's coming out and then going through this tube. Then it's going into the gas post of my mini keg like so, and then I connect the tap onto the output of the mini keg. So this means what I've got is the beer's getting dispensed from my large 19 litre or 5 gallon keg into the, well in this case, the little 5 litre mini keg. So this keg's always going to be topped up and full. I can dispense from the mini keg on a day-to-day basis. You may use this a tap like this, or you might actually connect this to one of your kegerator taps, for instance. But either way, yeah, you have it set up like that. So you're always dispensing from this one, and there's a couple benefits. Firstly, if you ever have a party or a barbecue, you simply disconnect this disconnect, take this keg with you, and you can take that to the party. You'll dispense out of there, and when you come back, you can just hook it back onto the system to refill the mini keg. And the other thing is, when you run out of beer, instead of, you know, you've always got this small keg being topped up with beer. So when this large keg runs out, you know you've got this little, I guess like a reserve, I suppose. You can go and make another batch of beer, put it in your 19 litre keg. So then you've got a bit of a heads up when that keg runs out. So I think this type of setup is really convenient. Definitely I find this type of thing a really good setup. So yeah, just wanted to tell you about this little technique of using mini kegs and daisy chaining them to your conventional larger keg system.